We're still talking about the coup in Gabon, precisely concerns in France over the coup in Gabon. There have also been other international reactions. China is calling for the safety of President Bongo to be guaranteed by the coup leaders. In the meantime, the European Union's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell has expressed concern for the whole of the region after yet another military coup. He said the matter would be discussed at a meeting of EU defense ministers in Spain. Take a listen.
The news are confused. I got the news this morning early. If this is confirmed, it's another military coup, which increased instability in the whole region. I cannot say more because I don't have more information, but certainly is an issue that will be put on the table when we will discuss. The whole area, starting with Central African Republic, then Mali, then Burkina Faso, now Niger, maybe Gabon. It's in a very difficult situation, and certainly the ministers, today defense ministers and tomorrow foreign affairs ministers, have to have a deep thought on what is going on there and how we can improve our policy in respect to these countries. This is a big issue for Europe.
China is closely following the latest developments in Gabon. We call on all sides in Gabon to proceed from the basic interests of the country and the people, resolve differences through dialogue, and restore normal order as soon as possible, and to guarantee the personal safety of President Bongo, in order to uphold national peace and stability.
Well, for more on the coup in Gabon, let's speak to the former director of the Royal African Society, a British diplomat and professor of diplomacy at the SOAS University of London, Dr. Nicholas Westcott. Good to see you and thanks for your time. This is more like a virus, is spreading, and many are trying to ask why it is happening across these parts of Africa.
In some ways, the coup in Gabon should have been a surprise to no one. The Bongo family have been ruling the country almost since independence, the last 56 years. And the last elections were both untransparent and therefore not very credible. Therefore, there was very little legitimacy left for Ali Bongo's government within the country. And this makes it easy for the military, who had clearly prepared the fact that as soon as the announcement of the election result was made, the military were there online with their statement saying they were taking control. So this had been prepared in advance. And since his heart attack in 2018, President Bongo had been less in control than he had been before. And therefore, there was all the ingredients available for a coup. Why do the military take over? Because they can. There are no institutions left to resist them. The president is dependent on the support of the security forces. In 2019, when there was an attempted coup, the military high command had supported the president. On this occasion, they've decided they will not. And therefore, the election gave them an excuse to intervene. What happens now, we remain to be seen, whether they genuinely want to transition back to democratic rule or actually, like many military rulers, once they find they are in power, they are reluctant to leave. We will have to see. Also, whether they will reorient the country from current close links to Europe, France and Western countries, or whether they will seek an alternative model, as is already happening in other parts of West Africa, like Mali and Burkina Faso. We wait to see. But it was a ripe plum ready to fall into their hands because although ostensibly it was a democracy, there was no real legitimacy, public legitimacy underpinning President Bongo's rule.
So, Professor Westcott, so in other words, just as Ambassador Achibong said earlier on, the election as a reason is a smokescreen by the coup leaders. What else do we expect on the continent, specifically Gabon and Niger, in terms of a transition to democracy?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, in fact, the election was not if you like, a smokescreen. The election itself was not credible. And that therefore undermined any legitimacy that President Bongo might have had, and therefore made it easy for the military to come in and say, this guy doesn't actually represent the people, so we're going to take over and represent the people. But what is happening across the whole region, the neighboring African states that are democracies, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, are very anxious to avoid a contagion of these coups, which is what appears to be happening, because they fear it will lead to instability on their borders, refugee flows, maybe even their own military will start thinking, well, if the guys next door can take over, maybe we can take over too. So the African democracies in the African Union and ECOWAS, maybe in the Central African states, are keen to restore civilian rule as well. It's not just the UN or international community. But the military are quite reluctant to hand back. There has been an announced transition in Guinea, where there was a coup 2 years ago. Mali have sort of promised a transition back, but they're not very convincing plans for transition. But up until the Niger coup, ECOWAS had said, okay, we'll give you time, maybe you can get back. Now there is a further coup in Gabon. I would be very nervous if I was the president of Equatorial Guinea or Republic of Congo or Cameroon. Maybe the military are going to decide they can do it in Gabon, we can do it here. So there is a real risk of further contagion. And the African Union and ECOWAS as regional organizations are in a bit of a bind.
Well, I think, we'll stay on this. We do hope we'll have more conversations with you again on this. Dr. Nicholas Westcott, many thanks for your time.